The movement is genuinely misogynistic. If people read my book, Crazy for God, they'll see why I left the pro-life movement and became pro-choice. And one of the reasons was that I realized back in the mid-1980s that people who were picketing clinics were soon going to be bombing them. People who were bombing clinics were going to be shooting people.
Yeah,
there was a groundswell of violent rhetoric within the movement right from the beginning, which justified murder of people who were disagreeing with you on these issues.
That's what's so disturbing to me. Let me play you something that was a little chilling that I played earlier this week. It's a tape of a man said to be Scott Roeder, who's talking about the people who reopened the clinic of the doctor he murdered, if it's Roeder. Listen to this.
It is a little bit death-defying, you know, for someone to walk back in there, and reopen a clinic, a murder mill where a man was stopped. You know, it's almost like putting a target on your back, saying, well, let's see if you can shoot me.
You got to realize there's a lot of inconsistencies in the whole movement. You know, this is the same right-wing bunch of Christians who want people to have access to 30-round magazine clips and assault weapons, and they think that's freedom. You know, pro-life is a weird word to use for a far-right movement that backed a president that killed 5,000 Americans in Iraq for no reason, 250,000 Iraqis, ran up a $4.5 trillion debt. You know, the right wing is not pro-life, okay? If they were pro-life, they would be anti-NRA. They would be funding women. They would be funding women who have babies and taking care of their children. They would not be doing lotteries in Indiana for Head Start. They would be taking care of those babies and those children once they're born. This is not a pro-life movement. This is simply a misogynistic anti-choice movement. And as I said before, you saw it with the Roman Catholic bishops being down on women getting contraceptives. And I want to say one other thing. You know, I was watching you the other night, and you were talking about how shocking it was that people were not standing up in the Republican Party to people like Rush Limbaugh and have this history of kowtowing. But I see it here, too. Where are the Republican leaders in the Senate and the Congress and the media who call themselves pro-life standing up and denouncing the fact that you have Roeder making statements like this and just saying, listen, this is awful. We've got to roll back the clock on this and go back to a position where we're debating this.
That's a good question, Frank. Where are they? We played this by Roeder, this tape the other night.
Right.
Where are the mainstream, moderate, pro-life leaders that would say, wait a minute, I'm pro-life, but this is despicable. This is inexcusable. Where are they? Where are those voices?
I'll tell you where they are. They are where they have always been, which is in private, in meetings, of pro-life meetings, going right back into the 70s and 80s that I was part of. You had one set of rhetoric for your own people. Then if someone went too far, murdered someone, or burned a building down and someone died, whatever it may be, afterward you would make very pale statements, the same kind of sort of after-the-fact pussyfooting around that you see from the right wing and the Republicans when people like Limbaugh are outrageous. But that's it. What doesn't happen is preventative action, where they read people out of the movement. Remember, Scott Roeder had been hanging around meetings with people like Operation Rescue before he was convicted of murder. Why are people like that welcome in those tendencies? You know, if this was an Islamic murderer, if this was the guy who bombed people in Boston, and 5 years from now he was making statements like this, talking about targets on Americans' back who were not Islamic or something, there would be a huge hue and cry. But if it's targeting providers of health care for women, apparently there's no outrage.
Well,
and that, I think, goes to show you where these guys are coming from. And that is in private. They're all for it.
It should be human cry no matter who says about targets on back.
Right.